Welcome to the Apex Energy Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Al-Qattan. Today, my guest is Kola Adetu. Kola is a heart-brain coherence coach and a clinical hypnotherapist based in Bristol, United Kingdom. You can check out his Instagram where he talks about several interesting topics like meditation, the neuroscience of attachment, and quantum biology. How are you doing, Kola?
I am superbly well, my friend.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's been a while since I have done podcasting. It's been a while, but I am looking forward to have a wonderful conversation with you. So
Yeah,
here we go.
awesome. Well, listen, I kind of give a brief introduction, but do you
Where
mind?
calling from?
Sorry, go ahead. It cut out a little bit. Yeah, I just wanted to
Yeah.
ask.
Do you mind?
I want to ask how I gave a brief introduction, but do you mind just like introducing yourself and giving a personal introduction into how you got into all this?
Excellent. Yeah, cool. Well, my name is Kola Adetu, and I'm based in Bristol, in the UK. And I've been the, I was born in Nigeria, of course. So I came to England around the age of 17, and I've been here since 1997. So almost have lived my life over in this country. And throughout my journey, of course, I have been paying attention to, emotional, emotional wellness, the power of emotion. I started with Anthony Robbins back in 2003, 2, 4, 5, 6. So I started with Anthony Robbins. Is the guy that talks about, emotion is the ultimate power. You see, that life is emotion. And one of the things I love about Anthony Robbins is that he talks about the fact that, the quality of our lives is directly proportional to the emotions that we feel. Just a moment.
Yeah, you're good.
To the emotions that we feel every moment, consistently feel. And that has stuck with me for quite a while, a lot. And he also talked about movement as well, like moving our body in order to feel or acting our way into feeling. And those are the kind of material that I draw into my head in my early 20s. 20, just a moment, let me just sort this thing out.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. It sounds beautiful as you're explaining it, but yeah,
Sorry?
it sounds nice as you're explaining it. The music.
Oh, I see. Cool. Yeah. I wanted to connect to the speaker, but it's okay. So, um, So I have been exploring all of these for quite a while. And then I came across Eckhart Tolle, after Anthony Robbins, and understanding the power of now, you know, not waiting for something in the future to happen, but actually being in the present moment, which is the experience of wholeness, which a lot of people don't understand when it comes to the way we show up in the world, because we exist as interbeing in the world. We don't exist as me, hi, right? Even our thoughts, the language that we use, they are not ours, right? The language that we use to describe ourselves, to describe the things we've seen in the world, are passed down to us. So our own thoughts, they are not ours, right? So this is, and a lot of people don't understand these basic principles. They tend to move towards this and um these individuality, which is great, but the individuality, like the wave of the ocean, rest in the ocean, right? And people don't realize this connection. And that has shaped my brain for quite a while. And I was going through quite a lot at that time in terms of immigration in this country, which took me quite a long time and almost destroyed my life, and which is why I tap into Eckhart Tolle to really begin to rest in my being and tap into the interdependence and the oneness and the connection that defines us as a sea of humanity. And a lot of these things have formed the very cornerstones of my thinking. Even now that I am recently qualified as a clinical hypnotherapist, which is my first qualification, you know, of my life, and it has been a journey. And so, I have a very deep interest in neuroscience. I have an interest in interpersonal neurobiology, yeah, which explain everything I got described. That we have to weave different sciences together to really understand a human being, right? We have to weave different science together. Now people are saying that it's becoming popular in the realm of quantum biology that um, that chemistry, what we call chemistry, is, what we call biology is applied chemistry, right? And what we call chemistry is applied physics, right? And at the bottom of that is the sea of infinite stillness, the sea of infinite, profound, pure quantum soup, that is giving everything life and form. This field of intelligence, and resting in that, understanding that our very culture, the very land that we live on, the sun, as it changes in our local postcodes, you know, has to do with the information from this field that is, that is playing, with us, and we are interacting with this field. And so, and I also have a very huge interest in, neuroscience, which is what I'm looking forward to talk to you about today.
Yeah.
Because recently I've been learning a lot from quantum biology, and sometimes when you're learning new things, you can it's kind of like it's kind of like a fracturing process, but that also takes time to weave together to become stronger. So people don't, it's a very interesting thing, to be with that fracturing process of learning new things in different field of quantum biology, and seeing how your confidence can deep and deep, because you are fracturing something to graft new informations into your being. And so I've been learning through that as well, that confidence, there's no such thing as confidence. Of course, it appears as confidence, right? Which is why it's all magic, right? The spontaneity of expression that we define as confidence, right? It's really, you know it's really presence, which is really, that's not to do with confidence. It has to do with just showing up and being present with all that is, right? With including, we might define this this thing as no being, the experience of powerlessness. And when I use the word powerlessness, it might sound as if like something not good, but it's a state of no being. Is that state of infinite stillness where you are able to be with all levels of consciousness. So, and as you begin to really, and as I was learning these new things, and I begin to realize how my ego and my confidence in my field, in the area that I'm good at, it's just an illusion, because now I'm moving to another area to learn new things, and I see how my confidence was a bit like, oh, I see now. So it's just ups and
Yeah. Yeah.
down,
Yeah. Yeah.
sine waves, but it's all life, isn't it? It's all life. So yeah, so in a sense, I'm passionate about neuroscience. I'm passionate about quantum biology. I'm passionate about humanity, you know and I'm also a qualified clinical hypnotherapist as well. So yeah,
Amazing. Yeah, I have a lot to ask you about. Well, I could say a lot of our interests kind of intersect. I'm really a big fan of Eckhart Tolle as well. He was really my introduction into spirituality. And the first book I came across was The Power of Now. And it was, I don't know, it was just that a moment, it came at a moment in my life and it just kind of hit me in a certain way. And everything he was saying was just, I don't know, it felt like truth on a gut level. But
yeah,
speaking of truth, I, I wanted to ask you personally, do you think you could arrive at the core truth of reality using one scope? So, for example, only using the lens of spirituality and or maybe only using the lens of science as opposed to overlapping them, which is kind of what I do and what you just mentioned as well. Do you think it's
yeah,
possible to arrive at that truth just through that one lens?
yeah. It's a very it's a brilliant question, and as you can see that if you look at the way the brain is structured, you know, we have this um, prefrontal cortex. Um, the prefrontal cortex, the leader of the orchestra. It's kind of part of the brain that differentiate us from a lot of other animals. And, you know, every living creatures have their own incredible genius and expression, right? A salamander can generate its limbs, you cut it off, it generate. We can do that, right? And so it's not like we are bigger than them. We just have our own unique genius, right? And we have this prefrontal cortex that allows us to make sense of the world in a way that no other animal can do. We have this curiosity, this ability to learn, to be curious about the nature of the world, like to dive into atoms, right from the dark ages, whatever, right back from our time in Africa, where I don't know what we know about history. Maybe we understand science back then. I don't know, but we can definitely tell there's a deep spirituality and a deep knowing of the world, right? And which is good. And then you kind of move forward to the 18th century, to the time of Descartes and Plato and all these. I mean, Plato and all these Greek philosophers, which yeah. And you kind of see that we have this curiosity to kind of want to make sense of our world, to want to tell a story, to want to tell a story. We are a storytelling animal. And so to want to make sense of the world. So it's necessary that we explore every means, right? Spirituality and science, which in my understanding is that, science is the contemporary language of mysticism, right? Way before Rene Descartes came and split the whole church and spirituality thing. And then the struggle for a while, Rene Descartes, Isaac Newton's, and they all want to define the world in terms of mechanics and no soul, no spirituality, just a mechanistic view, a very reductionist view. And then came Albert Einstein, and they begin to understand the realm of quantum, right? And they begin to see that electrons, what we thought, the things we thought, the electron that we thought to be particle behave like waves, and and light that we thought is like a wave behave like particles as well, which is where the term quantum came from, quantum. um, a discrete unit of particle of energy, packet of energy. So, so it has taken us a long time to arrive. Science is the contemporary language of mysticism, and science, you know, what is spirituality is just a science, a physics we don't understand yet. And so, and it's very necessary that we explore spirituality from different angles, right? And at the moment, as much as I'm very passionate about quantum biology and neuroscience possibility, I'm also very passionate about humanitarian science, like social science. How we experience the world together as human beings, because that's what determines our survivor, right? So I think that we should allow everything. We should not, we not know what reality is, right? We know that reality, it's more like poem. It's more like poem. It's not solid. It's more like fluid. There's no black and white to it. So, and in the word of Eckhart Tolle, when we're experiencing the now, right? It's not like we are denying the particles of our lives, like the events of our lives. It's not that we are denying the events of the world. It's more like we are interbeing, right? We are being with experiences of our lives. We are being with the experiences of the world. And that is where the power of now, or consciousness, or infinite stillness, this pure quantum soup, um, this pure stillness that everything arises from, which is what defines it, is the ability to transcend and be with, rather than just being in experience, right? Which can be very unconscious, because if you're in suffering, in difficult situation, right? Let's say you're in a difficult problem, right? As an adult, because there's a difference between being a child and being an adult, you know. So as an adult, if you're in a difficult situation, difficult emotional situation, we can make that suffering more by just unconsciously being in it, right? Or we can really hold the baby, so to speak, and be with the pain. And in my own personal practice, the body respond in a very powerful way, genetically, hormonally, chemically, when we begin to show up like this in the world, where we are we realize our interconnectedness, where we're showing up as interbeing, as everything, and yet distinct, right? And so it is this wisdom of this stillness, this vastness, this sea of quantum possibilities, this wave like being with it. We can talk about it philosophically, and we can also, I mean, you know, neuroscience have also said a lot about this, that when we when we are observing something, rather than when we are observing experience, you know and not just in the experience, there's a different chemical response in our body. We have the capacity to transcend the pain when we are being with experience, when we are literally just being with, and of course that changes our heartbeat as well, right? And I mean, you can go along the direction of the parasympathetic nervous system and the changes in heart breath, right? Where we can become greater than time or experience, right? Because time is experience, and time is also can be defined as thermodynamics, second law of thermodynamics, which is the flow of information and energy, right? Which has to do also has to do with circadian as well. So, as we are being with experience, right? We are being with the experience of pain. We are being with the experience of the events of the world, or a mother being with the experience of having a baby, right? The, the body will respond in an incredible way. One of their response is the dilation of the heart, of the lungs, which has to do with oxytocin, vasopressin, which allows the body to create more water, which means that it has a capacity to store more energy, to absorb more energy from the solar spectrum. So, we see mothers do this every time when they give birth at home, right? Like effortlessly, right? And this is the power of now. This is a power of stillness, right? Being with, not disassociating, not dissociation, but being with presence, being with the experience until you begin to rest in the greater reality of our being, which is the sea. And all of this is possible with practice and education, because I tend to say that that the brain is designed the brain is designed to um, the brain is designed to generate models of understanding based on the knowledge that we have learned and the experience that we have had in our lives. The brain is designed to, yeah, to do that, you know, and for the very purpose of transcending, right? So education and practice is very important, especially in philosophy or in any theoretical understanding of the world. So, yeah.
What was, if you don't mind me asking, your school system and your school structure like going off of education? And how did that shape your learning later on in adult life? Was it something you had to break out of, or was it helpful in
Honestly,
understanding the world?
honestly, I wasn't very good in school. I was
Yeah.
crap like shit. I'm sorry to use that word. I was not good at school.
Yeah.
I was not good. I cannot explain my school experience. There was this thing in my head. I don't know where it came from. It just doesn't make sense of school. It doesn't make sense. It does not. School is like an alien. Mainstream education is like an alien
Mm,
experience to my nervous
mm.
system that I couldn't compute. And the only time I would say I would ever actually have any connection in school, any soul connection in school, wasn't even at school. It was at home, like learning by myself, making the um, kinesthetic experience of learning, the emotional connection of learning. And that's when I found the joy of learning and the joy of education, because I make this connection that I actually wanted to learn. I wasn't even enjoying the subject I was trying to study. I wasn't making sense of it, but there was like a subtle connection of energy that registered in my body, in my nervous system, that I cannot forget. And that was in primary school. And when I left primary school to secondary school, I tried, but the subject were getting very wacky for me. So I lost it. And then when I finished primary school, high school, dropped out of high school. I mean, left high school, came to England, and that started again. So I was reading a lot of spiritual books, and so I started to make that connection, that feeling again. So I've never really understood school, and I went to college here, and still I
Hmm,
wasn't very good.
hmm.
Not that I wasn't very good. It was just an alien environment to my system. It's like taking a fish out of the water and telling to adapt to the physical world. You're like,
Yeah.
You're going to confuse the fish pretty fast. So that
Definitely.
was my experience of school. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think school it's good for mechanical things. Like I was okay at school, but I in no way is it a predictor, I think, of someone genuinely understanding a subject. I don't know. I challenge that idea a little bit because we have doctors, we have people that are experts in their fields that
Yeah.
exceed in school and they understand fields very well. But there's something that schools just can't give someone. It's that curiosity. I mean, I see it just in even in myself. I can relate. Everything was alien to me growing up in high school and all that stuff. But it wasn't until I was exploring things on my own, out of my own
Exactly.
genuine curiosity, that I really started to understand things and actually enjoy them. And it didn't even feel like work. It was just it flowed, and I could learn about all these things and read these textbooks like it was nothing. But would you say it was the same for you as well?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. The power of self-directed learning. Look at AI technology, right? AI technology actually make us realize the power of self-directed learning, right? You know, when a child is involved in self-directed learning, children are mostly in their alpha brainwave, which is the native brainwaves of the planet, the native brainwave before we bring in what kind of shit into it. Um, you know, and everything grows effortlessly in that brainwave, alpha brainwave. And alpha brainwave is just above beta. In between, yeah, after beta, there is high beta, which is a very stressed chronic state, and there is medium beta, which is when you're in a good eustress. You are in a good state. You can handle your outer world and your inner world, right? And use the stress to create possibility. That is the medium brainwave, medium beta brainwave, beta beta. So, and there is a very low brainwave, beta, where you are just no the medium beta goes into alpha, which is where you are just aware of your internal state, right? You're also aware of the world, but you're mostly in your internal state. And this is where self-directed learning occurs. And they've talked about being able to um, this alpha brain wave. It's what allows for, okay, this alpha brainwave, for you to move into alpha brainwave, how do you change brainwave? That's a question. That's that thing I want to explore in terms of self-directed learning, right? How do you move into this alpha brainwave? And that's only possible according to this doctor. I forgot his name now. It's an American doctor, is French, if I'm right, and he's written a book called the title of the book is called Open Brain Focus. Open Brain Focus. And they were trying to change their brainwave, in this scientific research, and they couldn't. They tried, they couldn't change their brainwaves. And then all of a sudden, he gave up. One Saturday, one weekend, he gave up. And as the moment he gave up, he noticed that on the monitor, something changes in his brainwave. you know, his brainwave suddenly changed from
Hmm.
high beta to alpha the moment he gave up. And that was when they begin to explore this idea of sensing space, noticing space, like children do. Children don't focus on one thing. They're just in space. They're just very
Yeah.
spacey, right? And this sense of space and awareness of space, sensing space, it what it's the very nature of self-directed learning, where you're exploring possibility. You are You're paying attention to your inner rhythm. You're paying attention to your inner world. What is aliveness? What grabs you from your inner state, right? In the world, children, you can go down on the street with a child wanting to go to the supermarket, but they will never go straight line. An adult can just walk straight line to the supermarket, but children, they are easily distracted. Now, that is one of the phenomenon in creative thinking and self-directed learning, right? They're easily distracted. They can easily change their point of awareness without getting narrow, without getting very narrow, very myopic, very one focus, right? Children don't do that. And that has to do with high beta, has to do with stress. Stress narrows our focus. We become what they call tunnel vision, right? When it comes to, and that is the way school operate. Tunnel vision. They write a curriculum, they beat you to follow the curriculum, they tear you apart to follow the curriculum, right? It becomes 1 plus 1 becomes very myopic. one 1 plus 1 becomes everything you see, right? But children are not like that, right? Children, you can go straight line to supermarket, as an adult. But children, they are easily distracted. They can jump on the wall 1 second, they can squat and look at the puddle, or look
Yeah.
at it. They can suddenly spot a snake. I mean, spot a snail, on the
Yeah.
wall, or they can they just nod down the straight line, right? And that is the nature of being, because they are very much in space. They're not like, oh, I'm going to supermarket. They don't have the destination of supermarket in their head, right? They have the just in the present moment, right? Sensing space, noticing space. And that's one of the principles of open focus brain practice. And that's the way we change brain waves. And there are higher brain waves as well, up to gamma. And gamma is the experience of self transcendent, is the experience of where we experience deeper quality of the nature of reality, the pure stillness. And that is where all kind of hormonal changes happen as the body, chemically, genetically, hormonally, neurologically, you know, the brain, you know, the brain begin to change. And that is the very nature of self-directed learning, and that's the nature of true education, so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah. It's this is something I've thought about a lot, how it's not that children are dumb, you know, they have imaginations, they can remember things, but it seems that they have this ability to let go of these things. They have this like lightness to them
Yeah,
where
exactly.
where they can go and play Captain Superhero, put a cape on and jump off the couch and play the floor is lava, but they can just as easily as they hold on to that imagination, let it go and move on to something else. So there's this fluidity with them. And that ability seems to get weaker with adults, whether that's through the environment beating it into them senselessly, like in schools, like you're saying, or maybe it's just biologically, right? The development of the prefrontal cortex, like you were saying,
Yeah.
making it easier to not pull the trigger, but easier to go tunnel vision, right? You
Yeah.
have a it's easier to slip into that state.
Yeah.
And a lot of adults lose the ability to let go of stories. They can hold on to things, but to let go of these imaginations is like that's where all evil comes into play. That's where all suffering comes into play. Where we
Exactly.
don't. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, very, very rightly said, right? And the thing about adult is that you know, the thing about adult is like we have to practice. You know, you have to practice. It doesn't come. You have to practice being imagination. I mean, being imaginative, creativity, imagination, and that's the beauty of meditation, so to speak. And that is the beauty of yoga, tai chi, or movement of any kind. Anything you do rep, repetitively, anything you do repetitively, like any sport, that allows you to become less focused on the events of your life and be more in space. When you're running, when you're jumping, when you're doing yoga, you are in space. It's a deep immersion in space, right? You're not focusing on anything, on any events of your life, right? You're not focusing on any event of your life. When you are in Tai Chi movement, when you're doing yoga, when you are doing boxing, when you are swimming, you are in the experience that you don't normally do, and you are in there chemically, hormonally, right? You are driven. You're completely breaking bonds with the events of your life, energetically, chemically. You're breaking bonds, right? And the more you do this breaking bonds with the event of your life, because the process of living as a human being is emotionally conditioning, is addictive, so to speak. I don't like to use the word addictive. Is emotionally conditioning the process of living as a human being, right? Paying the bills, going to work, right? And we don't live in a perfect universe, right? So there's stress in the environment as well, social stress, domestic stress, bill stress. So if you combine all of those with the process of living as a human and within a society, it's very emotionally addictive. It's very high, it's very stress conditioning. We become conditioned to stress. So it's important that as adults we practice, we get involved in a practice that allows us to break bonds with those association, because the brain learns through association, through the laws of association and the laws of repetition. That's where the brain lands. If I say to you that the brain look like a branch, look like a tree branch. Have you learned now? Do you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if I say to you, um, you know, if I say to you A, B,
See.
D, you see, the brain learns through association, right?
Mm.
So there's so many things like that. The brain learns through association. So all of these events, all of these social conditioning and social stressors and stuff like that, you know, for adult, we become conditioned to them. We become, you know, if you look at the brain, if you look at the neocortex, which is like 65% in comparison to the rest of the brain, it's a very big part of the brain. You know, if you look at every human being, we have a circuits in our brain, a circuit for everything in our life. The way we respond to our partners, the way we respond when we wake up in the bed, what we do, the way we behave around dinner time, lunch time, the way we when we look at our bank account, the way you behave, all those things, repetition of your lives. There's a neuron, a neural circuits in your brain that represent all of those things.
Mm.
So Facebook, all the likes, everything they are there. And this is what create dopamine dysfunction in the brain, right? Addiction. I use the word addiction. I don't like to use the word addiction. This is what create this dopamine dysfunction. This is what create this association in our brain, right? Because without dopamine, you can't create association in your brain. You can't create these neural circuits in your brain. So, you have a neural circuit, like when you learn how to ride a bicycle, you have it in your brain. You don't have to learn it again. It's there. You can ride a bicycle now without your hand, being on your
Mm.
phone, testing on your phone, right? So adults, and the worst thing is that we have a neural circuits for every other things in our lives. And the beauty of living as a human being is that we have to have practice in our lives where we break bonds with all of these things. And what I mean by breaking bonds is like where we can step beyond is a process of transcendence, where we become aware. We are taking time out of our lives. So it's important for human beings to take time of their life, whether every day in meditation, every day in yoga, every day spending long moments in nature. And this is one of the characteristics of people who have experienced spontaneous remission, spontaneous healing. They take long moment out of their life, breaking bonds with all of these rituals that makes up your life, right? That makes up our lives. So it's important that we practice these things so that our there is more neuroplasticity in our brain, so that our neurons doesn't become flappy, right? We have to condition it to learn, to learn. We have to condition it. Learning does not come easy, doesn't come to you. You have to create the condition for learning, and the condition for learning is half a brainwave. And a lot of our lives on this planet, it's based on high better. We are conditioned to be in high better. We live in a defensive state, and in this time, in time of chaos, in this broken society, we live in hyper vigilant state. You know, we live in acute stress state. So it's important that and what this does is that it narrows our brain tunnel vision. you know we become more like particle and less like wave. We're not able to embody possibilities in our body, because possibility, or what they call hope, is not something. It's not mental. It's consciousness. It's this field of intelligence bubbling alive within us. And so we have to practice breaking bond. Like, yeah, it's nice to be the wave, right? It's also nice to go down to the bottom of the sea together.
Beautiful. Yeah.
So those practices are very important, and that we should encourage, you know, adults, and which is why education in the knowledge of the mind, in the nature of the mind, the nature of the brain, the nature of consciousness is paramount in a quantum universe. And our society have not done a very good job. We've used education to really oppress our own species, our own species, which is terrible, which is really, really terrible state we are in right now. We've used education to beat people up in the head, to control people, and that is not good, because every living organism wants to help each other. They want to uplift each other, right? Um, for the purpose of survival, and that is our purpose on the planet, to educate one another. So your question was, yeah. So really having that practice of breaking bonds, and this podcast has been a very good reminder for me as well. Breaking bonds with the events of our lives, which is what sleep is all about.
Mm.
Sleep is about breaking bonds, right? It's about breaking bonds, because when you access REM sleep, right, you're breaking bonds when you access REM sleep, and the prefrontal cortex, and you begin to process the dream, right, in REM state. And what happened? The prefrontal cortex have like a handshake, like a handshake to the limbic system. To the limbic system, the prefrontal cortex begin to strengthen its connection, and those emotional memories begins to move from being emotional to narrative memory, a kind of a memory that we have control over. So you are breaking bonds with those stressful events. And that is why circadian rhythm, the circadian biology, sleep is a very state of existence on this planet. And sleep, which is what people are talking about now in quantum biology, code, thermogenesis, high sage, everything go to sleep during the high sage. And there's this Cambrian explosion where life just burst everywhere, and they don't know what happened during the Cambrian age, if I'm right. Yeah, they don't, because but everything was asleep in that state. Life was asleep, and something happened that causes explosion of life everywhere, and that sleep has to do with cold temperature, freezing. But which is why a lot of phenomenon, a lot of chemical hormonal phenomena happens in our body when we embrace cold, when we embrace the elements, when we embrace especially the cold ice bath. They use now in cryotherapy as well. So life begins in sleep. Life regenerate in sleep. So it's a very um, powerful biology that we have. So that breaking bonds, is something we have to practice. It will never come easy. It doesn't come easy like that. We have to practice regeneration. We have to practice being um, creative thinking, imaginative thinking, like children does. Like I said, I am now spending a lot of my time waking up, you know, going to bed early, following circadian matching of my season in my area, going to bed, you know, early to wake up early, you know, managing artificial lights in my house after sunset, managing artificial light, making sure all the lights are dim at night, so that I can encourage that process of life, that process of regeneration, right? And in the day, opening my windows as much as possible. And when you do that, when you process dream at night and you regenerate, you can wake up really feeling alive, feeling able to connect with the element. And but much more than that is really spending time in meditation, which is a different topic entirely. And the purpose of meditation is to really break bonds and go deep in this stillness, in this quiet stillness, this universal infinite consciousness. And then, because we are still living in the physical world, you cannot go into creative imagination, like, you know, in first person, of course, imagining possibility, because you have to train your brain to be imaginative. You know, I tend to catch myself when I'm having fantasy. I tend to catch myself, and I say, "Oh, yeah, you go. You're having fantasy, so you can do it, right? You can do creative imagination." Yeah, I kind of remember myself every time when I see myself fantasizing about something or a gorgeous woman or something like that. I say, "Hey,
Yeah.
look, you're doing it. You're doing it. So you can really do it, because when I'm fantasizing, I'm feeling it instantly. The body does not differentiate between imagination and reality. So I tell myself, hey, look, you're doing it. You're doing it. So now consciously do it. And you cannot go from high better into that. You have to change the brain waves. You have to break the bonds to do that, to go into alpha, so that creative thinking can come to you.
Yeah, it sounds so simple, but so
Exactly,
many
brother.
struggle with it. So many, I mean, people resort to neurosurgery where they have to surgically cut areas of their frontal region from the limbic regions so that they can overcome their depression, or resort to pharmaceuticals or even psychedelics. It's so hard to just do
Yeah,
on your own
very
for
good
some
point.
reason for a lot of people.
Very good
Like it's
point.
yeah.
Very good point you made, and it has to do with education. Actually, the oppression of consciousness on this planet is a big deal. The oppression of consciousness on this planet is a serious, serious, big deal. Because consciousness is real education, right? When we begin to teach people about the nature of reality, about consciousness, about quantum biology, because quantum biology, the main understanding, the main principle of quantum biology is circadian biology, right? And circadian, as you know, has to do with approximately day, the time of day, the time of day had to do with this, had to do with the electromagnetic energy field of the sun, how it interact with our biology and create all kind of um, chemical changes in our body, in our eyes, in our brain, telling us to go to sleep, and moving with that cycle and rhythm, you know, and with that is also the thermodynamic experience of these heats, or the temperature from the environment, how it interact with our melanin to create electrical phenomenon in our body, so that it begin to interact with our mitochondria, and begin to cause the mitochondria to really create more water, to store more energy. And as that begins to happen, we begin to create more melatonin in our not just in our brain through the pineal gland, but through all the cells of our body, melatonin. And this melatonin, it's come from L-tryptophan, and it is the very engineer of life, right? It's what begins to create health and vitality and homeostasis in the body. It's what helps us to sleep at night, right? So, when people begin to understand that their sickness has to do with quantum engineering, right? Has to do with mitochondrial health or mitochondrial biology, so they can really begin to see that, okay, well, you know, your health, your well-being has to do with what you do in the day, circadian biology, time, approximately day, right? What you do in the morning, right? So nature has made it easy for us, right? Children don't know very much. What we do know about children is that they want to go outside and play in the morning and run around, right? And if we can do that, to see the sun, right? So, it's about discipline. It's a free medicine. Circadian medicine is free. Is decentralized. It's free, but it requires proof of work. Proof of work. You have to have proof of work to enjoy it, to tap into that economy. What my friend Dr. Jalal Khan said, the economy of protons and electrons in the mitochondria, right? And this flow of energy and information in the mitochondria has to do with what we do in the day, the moment the sun rises in the sky and goes and set at night. What you do you stay indoor all day, windows closed, living close to Wi-Fi, and then living in a city with other people using 5G all around you? Every mobile phone is using 5G. Now, if you have a network of 5G connected and then you live next to some 5G mast up there, then your mitochondria is shit. It's fried. The water in the mitochondria decreases. You have no
Hmm.
capacity to store energy from the sun. So, which is why people recommend camping, changing your postcode, your location, and camping in nature, sleeping close to earth, to restore this thermodynamic order in your system, to restore this circadian mismatch. so that your body can begin. So it might take a week, it might take 2 weeks, but you have to put in the work, that proof of work. But, as you know, with everything, it starts with education. And the way to oppress people is to miseducate them, right? Or educate them enough so that you can control them. And that's the problem we have on our planet. Like you said, it's simple, but we've lived over 50, 70 years of colonial education, right? All education that we have come from colonial times all over the world, right? And this oppression of consciousness, I cannot figure it out myself. Russia, who seems to be very defiant of Western country, I don't see any uprising of consciousness. The Arab world, the Islamic world, where there seems to be a defiance of the Western world, I still don't see any freedom of consciousness there. Right. I'm not going to talk about Africa, because we know that there's a history of colonialism there. And the Asian country where there's also colonialism there. But so I can't figure out this oppression of consciousness, which has to do with quantum understanding. And the moment we move into this quantum age and understand circadian biology, education is the key. Education is the key. Changing education is so important. And what is tied to it is this social social economic model that we have. I don't even know if I can call it social economic model. I don't know what it is. I call it, this vampire economy that we have all over the world, that we need money to exist. It's really what is killing us on this planet. And I keep asking this fundamental question that comes from first principle thinking: how much do we really need to exist, to thrive on this planet? Do we need all this drilling, mining, drilling? Do we really need all of these activities on this planet? Do we need a warehouse to be full of computers that is yet to be sold? Do we need to have 4 or 5 different companies creating the same product computer because of competition and the nature of this bullshit vampire economy? Do we need Samsung, Apple? Do we need them to create all the wires to charge it, to charge their technology? Now we have all of these technologies, all of this wiring system that isn't going nowhere. So our challenge is really this oppression of consciousness and social economic model that we have. And it's a big deal. It's a really a big deal. It's some of the stuff that I talk to my client about. As much as I'm helping my client to resolve the stress in their life, I'm also letting them know that, yeah, I respect you for coming to me to resolve these issues, but this is not just you. This is the condition of the society, the ecosystem that we are swimming in, because the disease is in the social system. It's not in the individual. It begins in the social system. Then, of course, you will find it in individual, and that's a problem with too much individual thinking or individualism. That's a problem because we live in interdependence, interbeing in an ecosystem, in an ecology. So the disease is in the ecosystem, then it finds its way into the individual, which is what is called system thinking come into place. So
Yeah, that's there's a whole lot in there, and I think I don't know who this. I think Russell Brand. Are you familiar with Russell Brand and his content at all?
no, I haven't at all. I haven't.
Okay,
I really
okay.
listen. I really listen to a lot of things out there. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
got I
No,
got
no, it's
so many
okay.
things to
No.
read.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
No, Russell. So Russell Brand talks about the domination of Western, let's say, colonialist kind of values and consciousness in other countries, and how, in traditional, let's say, native, let's say somewhere like the East, right? Um, where it's not as material focused, where spirituality and collectiveness
yeah,
are upheld as the very center of society in a lot of ways. Obviously, I'm overgeneralizing, um, but this kind of collective colonial scarcity kind of mindset has now taken over the world, and I mean, it's not to demonize, the Western kind of mindset, but it's like I think Gabor Mate mentions it in his book where he says the natives were very living harmoniously with the land, right? They didn't own their land. I don't know if that's 100% true, but that's the narrative I'm going to go with. And they just lived very harmoniously with the animals and with the way they ate, and they had all this respect, and it was all about the tribe and the collective and being together. And then when the white man came, the natives would call the white man came, that the white man just he had this look on his face, like he was looking for something, that he was constantly searching for something outside of himself. I'm obviously I'm being I'm that's not the exact quote, but the message behind the story is that this kind of Western thinking, the at the very center of its consciousness is I need more, more, more. It's a mindset of scarcity. And that's not saying other cultures don't have that scarcity, but it's not at the very core of their societies. That collectivism and um, not controlling things is at the very center of other cultures. Now that I'm saying it out loud, I don't
yeah,
know. Yeah, I don't know how true that is, because other cultures have done bad things as well, let's say, or have this
yeah,
element of scarcity, wanting to control
yeah,
things.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I don't know. What do you think about that? I'm not. I don't know if that's 100% true. I'm just kind of thinking out loud. Um,
yeah.
and
Like,
yeah,
the thing is like, when I look at history, you know, I used the word colonialism earlier, and this is just human consciousness, isn't it? And whether we say is the white man, or that the black people have done it to them to each other in the past as well, and we can also see that the white people have done it to the other white people as well. But you know, it's not really about white people, black people, red people, yellow people, right? Is the history. I tend to say that this is the history of human behavior. And the purpose of history is not to point finger, is to see patterns of human behavior, and to see patterns, and so that we can transcend the pattern and create a better possibility for our future. There's no shame around it, just awareness. And one of the things that I do know is that, what if that we are just jumping into each other's, we're just jumping into skins every time? Maybe in one lifetime you were black, and in the same people that were black in this lifetime were white in the other lifetime, and people that were white in the lifetime were Indian in a lifetime. you know, and this flow of consciousness, and like I said before as well, even the language that we use to describe things, they are not hers. And this thing is so powerful. You tell a child that is a tree. You say, oh, tree. And the child learns, shapes, right? Is our neural networks. And then you tell the child, this is, you know, a child does not take a cup. A child will take a cup and turn it on his head and put it on his head because it has no neural connection, understanding to this cup, to understand this cup. All the brain is saying is just electrical patterns. But the moment you start to associate cup, water, cup, drink tea, right? The brain begins to form this association to cup. And of course, that can means that maybe other past life phenomena could come through along that reminder, because learning is to learn is to remember.
Hmm.
To learn is to remember. And that is, you know, if I am perpetuating colonialism and oppression and stuff like that, maybe I'm just remembering something that's been done,
Hmm.
something I've seen done, right? Or I have done myself at one point. So to learn is to remember, right? So if you look at the very nature of the quantum nature of consciousness and time, you find out that we need to be very careful the way we look at history. It's not linear. It has nothing to do with the skin color. It just has everything to do with the flow of consciousness, right? And there's this saying that, we are the universe. We are the structure of space. We are the structure of space in which the universe is learning about itself. We are the structure of space. We are the structure. Space is not empty, right? We know that now. That an atom is 99% empty space, right? So, an atom is 99.9 empty space, right? So, and we know that that space is just a cloud of energy, right? It's not empty. It's a cloud of possibility, in proportion of different possibility, right? So, if all of reality is wave function, is wave, and we are the structure of space. We are the structure of this field of information interacting with itself. And then, we now know that memory is not stored in the brain. Memory is stored in this field of consciousness, and when you need it, boom, it comes. you know we remember the past because we can recall the past very well, because we can remember how we felt,
Hmm.
right? I'm going to repeat that again. We can remember the past because we can remember how we felt. We can remember how they made us feel. So feeling emotion has something to do with this field of consciousness. And feeling an emotion has to do with your experience in this time space that we are in. So what you're remembering has to do with what you want to remember, what you want to learn, right? If I'm perpetuating oppression, like I say, right? Oppression is because it's I am in that field energetically, emotionally. So that information of colonialism is coming down from the ether into my being, and I'm creating system in physical time space to make that colonial engineering possible, right? So what I'm saying is, like, if we look at the past and we look at the nature of consciousness, the quantum nature, realize that there's nothing like black, white. It's all an illusion, you know. Um, it's all an illusion, and it's when I say illusion, I'm not just camouflaging everything. I'm saying that we should be careful. We should observe our emotional state, because our emotional state will determine on the kind of information we want to download, because we're able to recall the past better because we can remember how we feel, right? You know, I said to say to my client that when you are in a state of ultimate orgasm, they call it little death, right? You don't remember anything else
Hmm.
apart from the orgasmic nature of life just bursting through your being. You don't remember that you've not paid your bill yet. You may have to come down from that orgasmic experience to remember, oh shit, I got my bills to pay. but but when you are in that experience, that's the very nature of consciousness, and how we how we structure information and energy.
Yeah, I saw as soon as I kind of mentioned that story, you kind of I saw this reaction of immediately, no, we are all one. This isn't a black thing. This isn't a white man thing. This isn't a it's just like a human issue, right?
Yeah, it's a human
Um,
issue.
it's a human issue. It's not, it has nothing to do with race. And for you to
No.
say that is to perpetuate this separateness even further, which is not necessarily wrong. It's just incorrect.
Yeah.
It's just not rooted in reality
No.
because it's like a mirror, like you're saying, right? It's you could be that person. It could have just as well been you, whether through a past life, a future life, or just in a situation in your own life, right? You
Yeah.
you point your finger at the oppressor, the person who wants to control. You say that's the issue, but in reality, that could just be you. You could be the oppressor in someone else's life. It's just a narrative you're putting out.
It's
And
incredible.
yeah,
There was this movie. Hollywood has done quite a good job in letting us understanding this nature of reality and past lives, and how we, you know, there was this movie that I watched about the quantum nature. There's quite a lot of movie now. There's one that's popular called Everything All at Once. Do you remember?
I haven't
I
seen
can't
it.
remember the
No.
title now. Sorry,
Yeah. I haven't seen it. No.
but you've heard of it.
Let me look it up right now, but keep going.
Yeah, it's I think it's something. If you put Amazon Prime, Everything All at Once, I think that's a title. You
Yeah.
know, it and there's this other one as well that is also Hollywood, where you know a man can be talking to you, but energetically, if you see what is going on energetically, it could it, even though, let's say, the partner is talking to you is a very young man in his early 20s, but energetically they will show us in the movie, they will show energetically that person could be accessing the consciousness of a older person in a completely different lifetime. And they show that in that movie, or they could be accessing their feminine quality, even though they are showing up as a man to you, but they could be just the channeling. So they
Hmm.
were showing that in that movie. And it's now we know that wave and particle, um, even though we say wave particle duality, there's no such things. Reality is just wave. So why we do see particles, science cannot still figure it out. Why I don't see you, and see just a cloud of possibilities,
Mm,
all right, in different superposition, in superposition of different state. Why do I see a physical body sitting down in his living room in whatever country? Why does I just see a cloud of energy? They
mm.
can't still figure it out. You know, they can't figure it out. So this is the mystery of existence we have to live with. But it's good because then we can be more like a poet rather than be a reductionist, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Kola, how much time do you have? You want to keep going, or it's up to you?
No, you call the shot, you know. You go ahead.
No, yeah, I don't want to like take over. I could sit for another hour if you want, but it's up to you. We could go another 45 minutes, maybe.
That's okay. That's okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't mind. Listen, I kind of some of this show is very like serious and sciencey structured, but I also, like you say, like I like to explore both sides. I like to be structured and rigid in some areas, but I recognize in other areas it's nice to kind of let loose
yeah,
and explore possibilities, not to be focused on one. It's okay
yeah.
to be narrow in some scenarios and panoramic and open
Totally.
and creative in others. I really was curious. I wanted to ask you, what are some, things you've seen in some of your patients when doing hypnotherapy? And, if you don't mind, you don't have to say any of their names, but what kind of issues do people come to you with? And do they get resolved through hypnotherapy? And how does hypnotherapy potentially help them through it? If you don't want to mention anything, it's
No, I wouldn't.
okay.
I would mention. I would mention names, of course.
Yeah,
You know, a lot of things that I see in myself and in my clients as well. And I've said it before. All our issues, and I'm not pointing blame at society because we are the society.
we are society. Yeah.
You know, a lot of the problem that I challenges that my client are dealing with are facing is just society. It's just social oppression. It's as simple as that. Um, why should my client comes to me? Why should any human come need help? Like they have chronic stress, intergenerational trauma in their body, and they have no time in their life to just lose themselves in nature. They have no time because they have to work to pay the bills, to pay the rent. And then they have no money after doing all the work, all the rent, all the work. They have no money for therapy. That is shit. It's like, you know, which is why I tend to listen to these universal basic income,
Hmm.
that they are proposing in the world right now. And, you know, and I think that the collapse of the financial system, I'm very much hope for it
Hmm.
to level up the playing field for everyone all over the world, every children born on this planet, because I really cannot figure out why any children born on this planet have to be born into poverty. Children born on earth are born into incredible wealth. Children born on earth are born into incredible wealth, incredible richness of a planet, right? Children born on this planet. I can say that over and over, over and over. Children born on this planet are born into incredible wealth. That's just it. Full, I'm sorry to say, full effing stop. So I cannot figure it out. When I see my client, a young woman, a young man, 28, or even, or even, a mature person in their 40, 45, 50, still effing struggling. And their challenge has to do with social systems that are oppressive, that are dehumanizing. It's just effing lots. And they have to work to pay bills, to pay forever ending bills, non-stop. And these people need time away to just be in nature. And we know that spontaneous remission happens when people take time out of their busy life to just lose themselves in the wild, to just lose themselves in nature until they start to lose track of time. That's when you begin to reach the quantum field, when you begin to lose track of time, where there is no time, nobody, no place, nowhere. Then healing begins to happen. Your body begins to move into homeostasis. But for a lot of my clients, when I listen to their story, I feel like miscarriages, but still I have to effing pay bills, intergenerational traumas in their bodies. And then they come to see me, and then I'm going to charge them, and then they have no money. Like I have no money sometimes, many times, right? And people have, and society expect, with the fact is, a lot of the conditions that I see in my client are just technologies, I guess the effect of the technologies of dehumanization that exist as systems on this planet. And so, yeah, I mean, like I said before, every child that is born on this planet, every child's born, cannot figure out how any child out of wedlock or in wedlock or out of married child, out of whatever. I don't care. Every child born on this planet is born into imaginable wealth. So why does poverty even exist? It's a serious matter that we should take to the bank and demand that this is
Mm.
not right. And I mean it with all the bones in my beings. Because I see it all the time in every person, every client that I see. I see it in myself. So I'll leave it there. Because that's just the reality.
Yeah.
And I'm sick and tired of hearing so-called, you know, positive vibe, s- you know, spiritual mainstream
Mm.
telling you to have some manifestation vibe that if you want to feel, if you want to attract or manifest certain things, you have to feel the emotion of that thing as possibility. That's just bullshit. That's just pure bullshit. Like, that's just bullshit. Like the very alchemy of spirituality, of the very principle of spirituality is humanity. Is really assessing the vulnerability of that is your humanity. And if you can embrace that, then you can have all possibility, right? Then the greatest power in the universe is kindness, is compassion, is interdependence. That's the greatest power in the universe. That's what makes us strong. Do we need another alien life to invade our planet to remind us of that very power? What it means to be human? Do we need that to happen? People say the 9/11, for example, people come together and that inspires a sense of awe. Do we need 9/11 to occur? The pandemic happened and everybody, there's a great mobilization of connection all over the world, right? Through Zoom suddenly skyrocketing, all this thing, people maintain connection, right? And that inspires all, right? Only to find out that this thing was pandemic, this thing was intentional act on the world, right? Just like 9/11 was, right?
Mm.
But there's no denying their the sense of humanity and awe and wonder that it's inspire in ordinary innocent people. So do we need all of this catastrophe to happen for us to realize our interdependence, our interconnection, that the greatest power on the planet is not some manifesting car bullshit, some manifesting my ideal life bullshit. It's the ability to generate compassion, to generate kindness, seen or unseen, behind closed door, to generate that wherever we may be. That's the greatest power on the planet. So, when I see my client, it's just that is the reality that I just cannot deny that, you know, these technologies of dehumanization is growing, it's getting stronger unless we do something. And I saw something this morning that I haven't really looked into it very well, but it was echoing this truth that I've been thinking about. Okay, it says the way the oppressor tried to stop the oppressed from using violence as a means to attain liberation is to raise ethical or moral question about violence. I want to state empathetically here that violence in any society is neither moral nor is it ethical. It is neither right nor is it wrong. It is just simply a question of who has the power to legalize violence. It is not a violence of whether it is right to kill or it is wrong to kill. Killing goes on. Let me give an example. If I were in Vietnam, if I killed 30 yellow people who were pointed out to me by white Americans as my enemy, I will be given a medal. A medal. I will become a hero. I would have killed America's enemy. But America's enemy is not my enemy. If I were to kill 30 white policemen in Washington, D.C., who have been brutalizing my people and who are my enemy, I would get the electric chair. It is simply a question of who has the power to legalize violence. In Vietnam, our violence is legalized by white American. In Washington, D.C., my violence is not legalized because Africans living in Washington, D.C. do not have the power to legalize their violence. You see that now? That's where we are right now. That's where we are trapped. And we cannot use all this spiritual bullshit to address the situation because you're not going to
Mm.
manifest yourself out of this oppressive, dehumanizing society. It's going to take the realization of our interdependence. And that's what I see in my client. And I do let them know that, I appreciate you coming to me, you know, and I want you to know that this is not all you. This is not all you. So be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself. Like a girl I was working with, 20-year-old girl, in Australia, you know, who through working together, she now moved back home from the city, which was just killing herself, like just blood sacrificing herself. Now she's moved back home to her parent. 20 years old now, she is really enjoying her life now, enjoying connection with her parent, right? Enjoying being looked after, and she needed that, right? And that is not part of the economy. The economy does not factor that in, that somebody should take time out. That is not an
Mm.
economy, and that is not what the economy wants. That's not what the economy demands. For you to take time out and go and chill out in nature and be with your parent and not pay rent in the city, blood sacrificing yourself every day, that's not part of the economy. Economy does not allow that, right? It encourage you, if you, like you said, if you blood sacrifice yourself, paying the bills, living in shame, right? The society will give you a medal, right? Well done, you're doing the right thing. You are showing hard work, right? That's what society wants. So, you know, hypnotherapy is a very powerful tool because it deals with subconscious mind, right? It deals with the subconscious mind. The reason why I went into hypnotherapy myself is because I realized there's a quantum engineering to it. Because when we're when we're working with the client, we use trance state. We use trance state. The same power that makes the body heals the body. You don't think about digesting your food. Your body just digests it and give you all the nutrient that you need, right? When you go to sleep at night, you don't make yourself sleep. Your body just knows what to do, and you sleep. You can't control it. You just have to make the condition for it, and the body know what to do. That's the power of the body. That's the power of the subconscious mind. So that's what we do in hypnotherapy. We access that power of the subconscious mind by encouraging, by facilitating brainwave connection through music and the specific words that we use, even words from the client. We impute that into the hypnosis. So we inspire that alpha brainwave, because alpha brainwave, alpha theta theta brainwave, which is healing, begins to cause the the body to relax, move into homeostasis, and begin to process this trauma, the stress when they sleep, and then they can wake up feeling more alive, feeling more connection. And that's the power of the hypnotherapy. It's incredible. And people say, "Oh, am I not going to talk about my trauma?" There's a space for that. There's a space for that. And however, we need to get your body back into resourcefulness, just a little bit. We need to get the body, their subconscious mind, back into resourcefulness, so that you know, so that when you're talking about the trauma, you when you're talking about the trauma, it's that thing I talked about. You're not just completely in it, like unconscious. You are being with the experience of the past, and that energy of being with changes the energy of the story, and then that gets stored again back into the hippocampus. Because when we remember the past in a trigger state, for example, we change the information. We change the way those stories are arranged based on the energy, based on the energy of the present moment, whether it's a anxious, hypervigilant energy. It will change the structure of the information, which is why memory is very creative. Memory is not the
Mm.
same. So every time we access that memory of the past, depending on the quality of the presence of present moment, it changes the arrangement and the arrangement of information of the past. So what we do in hypnosis, in the therapy, is is remove all the energy out of the memory of the past, so that it become a narrative memory, a memory we have control over. And then we can, of course, through the quality of presence, put a new of energy of presence back into that memory. So when you look at the past, it's not as triggering. It's not triggering anymore. You can look at the past now with wisdom.
Hmm.
Yeah. So that's why hypnotherapy is really incredibly effective. And I've used it a lot when I was going through difficult circumstance for years, right? And I use hypnotherapy a lot. I use it a lot, like every day, and I suddenly forget about it, for a while. And through the pandemic, I realized I need to figure out a new career path. So I just remember, okay, I think I'm gonna take the hypnotherapy path. So that's why I
Hmm.
found myself on hypnotherapy.
Amazing. Yeah, and it's not like hypnotherapy is something alien that you have to do. Your body already does it, right? It
It
already
does.
dissociates during traumatic experiences. We
That's the
know
word.
that.
Dissociate. Yeah.
Yeah. And the issue is with traumatic situations or PTSD, I guess, and even we can say milder versions of people that maybe experience trauma again and again, is that they constantly dissociate, but it's not under their control, right? I don't want to generalize, but this
That's right.
dissociation thing, yeah, I've read of Dr. Gabor Mate's literature, and he talks about how and Bessel van der Kolk as well. He says the trauma itself is not the issue, but it's a response. It's your body and mind's attempt to solve the issue. But this solution is now repeating itself over and over again,
Consciously.
and that itself is the dysfunction.
Yeah.
So dissociation is not the bad thing, but it's the uncontrollable dissociation, the
Yeah.
uncontrollable
Yeah.
fear.
There is disassociation and there is dissociation. The
Okay.
dissociation is there. The dissociation is there, when the body recalls the past in sensation, emotions in your body, right? The body is attempting to resolve it. But in any creative process, it requires partnership, right? You have to engage the process of creation. You have to engage the process of possibility. It doesn't just happen. So, and that is where education comes in, where you educate yourself so that you know because the brain is not just information processing. It's not just sensory information processing. The brain is mostly predictive processing, right? It's predicting, which is what you talk about as that hijacking of the amygdala, right? That tr- trigger, that flashback, that come back all the time, and that is the quantum phenomenon that we see in trauma, that the body is trying to recall the past and the presence, to kind of resolve it, right? Because the energy is still stuck somewhere in the system. And the beauty of education is that once the person understand that the body is not working against the client, it's not working against him or her, that the body is actually trying to resolve it. So, but it requires a conscious observer. It requires a a conscious being to engage the process, like the land. We have season all the time. The land is always bringing forth stuff, weeds, whatever, right? You have to show up to put some seeds in, to put some corn, to put some rice, some beans, right, in, to engage the creative process. So when the client understand that the brain is not just sensory information, you're not just being triggered by what you're seeing, smelling in your current environment. The brain is mostly predictive. So it will predict the future, it will predict what is happening based, based on the event of the past, based on the event, everything you've learned, everything that happened to you, every connection you have ever made in the past is stored in the brain. We say that in neuroscience, in hypnotherapy, that is stored in the stress bucket, which is stored in the hippocampus. So, and I was telling somebody that, do you know that the hippocampus receives about 100 neurons every day?
Hmm.
But if you're in a chronic stress, your hippocampus shrinks because you're not in homeostasis. So a lot of the trauma people, they don't have that benefit because they're in stress all the time, in chaos all the time. So they don't get new neurons in the hippocampus to form new memories, to create new experiences, new novelty experiences. So you really need education in the nature of the brain, how the brain can be in two states. The brain can be in a trauma state or in a creative state based on education. Simple as that. And education has to do with society. Society is supposed to educate its own people so that we can all evolve into a higher state of being. So when we begin to educate the client that the brain is a predictive processing machine, so all our experiences that we are having, all our thoughts are just predictive based on the event that happened to you, traumatic or the one you actually took the time to program in there by yourself, whether through a book, or taking time out of your busy life to imagine new possibilities or go to new places and take them in, create all these memories. So the brain will, so all our thoughts, which is what really flashback is, right?
Hmm.
Is what really flashback is, right? It's just thoughts, but they are predictive processing. So the brain is predicting the future based on the past event, resolved or not resolved, right? And so and so when people understand how the brain works like this, that the brain can be in two states. The brain can be in creative state or in a trauma state. So, and that's the beauty of circadian biology and neuroscience, is that we learn about the brain from circadian biology, how the brain does sleep. We learn so
Hmm.
much about the brain from sleep, from circadian biology. We learn so much about the brain, so much about the brain homeostasis, so much about hypothalamus homeostasis from you know this circadian stuff that we do every night. That if we can process if we can process event of the day. I'm sure you've experienced REM sleep before, where you know after the end of the day you come back home to your parent or to your friend and you tell them about an upsetting event, and they tell you and they tell you to forget about it, but you really cannot forget about it. You went to bed still thinking about it, but then you sleep. You wake up the following morning, right? You might as well as forgotten about the upsetting event, but you'll be saying something more like, how can I allow that person to upset me? How did I allow that thing to upset me? How could I allow that? Now you move from a stressful memory that you couldn't get over to a negative memory where you deassociate. And you're like, how could I allow that person to upset? How could I allow that person to upset me? Like from a neutral narrative memory.
Hmm.
So now the brain is being a creative state. It is breaking bonds, like I said before, breaking bonds with the events of your life. You break bonds energetically, chemically, neurologically, right? You're breaking bonds with them, and now you are you are having this de-associative experience, this associative experience where you're stepping out of the story and you're looking at the story from their window looking in, more like a creative director, creative producer. Like, how could I let that guy be in that part of the story? How could I let that guy be the main character in that story? No, 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 that's not happening. Right now, you're in a creative state, right? And that is the brain in the creation of reality. That's the brain in the creation of possibility. Now, the brain in trauma is a different thing entirely. It's a different neurobiology, right? Where you wake up in the morning, wake up feeling tired. Maybe you find it difficult to go to sleep, or you wake up in the middle of the night with panic attack. You're tired, exhausted, and you try to go back to sleep. You really, really tried, but when you wake up, you are even more tired. Teenagers, 20s, is to having relationships, and then that trauma comes. If you're lucky, you have a very educated partner. If you're unlucky, you have a very stupid partner, and so, or uneducated partner. So the trauma gets repeat, and it's because trauma mostly happens in relationship, or relational trauma is very strong because we need other people to survive, right? So it become hardwired into the brain. So we begin to live mostly from the limbic system. We begin to live from the emotional brain. The emotional brain begin to encourage more negative focusing. Encourage because via cortex is shut down, it's offline. So we are living mostly from the limbic system, which is really fight, flight, freeze, anger, anger, anxiety, depression. So so we are living from that autonomic state all the time. And the longer we live in it, the more chronic it get, the more chronic inflammation we get, the more sicker we get, the more the mitochondria shut down. And now we are in a serious problem. And the very nature of complex PTSD is the father, this thing can begin at the earliest stage, difficult part in life. I mean, we see today, right? People commit suicide, take their own life, unable to ask for help, unable to speak. So it's really so that's the nature of the brain. I could go more deep into it, but I just leave it like that. That's the nature of the brain, that the brain can be in that two state, either of that two state, right? The brain can be in that two state, trauma state or creative brain, and they have their own different neurochemicals, neurobiology, and that perpetuate that condition. And um and like I said, when we access that REM sleep and you wake up in the morning, you might as well have forgotten about this upsetting event, but you'll be disassociated from the experience, and you'll be stepping out of the movie like Woody Allen and saying, no, you come out of the character, you take the back seat. It's a different level of living, it's a different level of awareness. So it's mostly education, and that is where, I know we're talking about dissociation and disassociation. So that is what it really is. And the other one, where trauma the trauma memory takes over, is really, we are living the past, right? We say, the the brain is organized, can be a map. The brain is organized to reflect everything that we have learned, everything that's happened to us. But the brain can also be a map to the future, right? Which is a creative brain. So for trauma people, right, the brain, quantumly, the brain is just repeating the past, because the brain is quantum, and it's predictive processing, right? And it's looking for the best efficient way of using energy. If the first time you experience stress and you pick up a cigar, that association is learned, is formed. So next time you have stress again, you pick up a cigar. The cigar does not necessarily resolve the stress. In fact, the more cigar you smoke, the more stress you get, the more depressed you get later in life. But that association is learned, right? So this law of association and law of repetition is how the brain create reality. So you feel stressed, you take up cigar, and because the emotional brain does not is not creative. So if what you did in the past, picking up a cigar after the stress, ensures your survival, then why change it? Because I'm looking for the least efficient way of using my energy. Because learning is metabolic expensive. Learning is metabolically expensive. You know that, right? Attention is. You really need to gather your energy to have quality of attention for your lover, for for this thing that you want to learn. You really need to mobilize all your energy. So learning is really metabolically expensive. So if what you did in Survivor is not a place to learn, it's not a place to open your heart in Survivor. So if what you did the last time ensures your Survivor because you pick up a cigar, hey, let's do that again. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. And it's easy. So that conditioning is there. Condition. It's no addiction. It's just that it, it's no addiction. It's just that living from the limbic, from the survivor, being in prolonged survivor physiology, and the chemical associated with that survivor physiology encourages that smoking cigarette because you are in survival. And what did you do in Survivor the last time? You pick up a cigarette. That's what you did to survive. So we're going to keep doing that. So for creative thinking to come into place, you need education and some practice. And we have three parts of our brain that allow us to go from thinking to doing to feeling. So you have to educate the prefrontal cortex, and through education, the prefrontal cortex start to come back online because when you begin to learn, you begin the process of normalization. So the brain is just say, aha. Aha moment is a moment of a light bulb moment. So the brain, the prefrontal cortex, start to come back online just by pure education only. The prefrontal cortex start to come back online, and the client start to start to get in the driver's seat of their life, or what I say, start to get behind their operative engine, their autonomic nervous system. So they start to get behind it because now they have an aha moment through education, and then as they do education, they start to practice in it, right? And that's a different level of the brain, and that's a different part of the brain. They start to practice their motor area of the brain, right? They start to practice it, and then as they begin to activate their motor part of the brain, right? They begin to feel it, to be it. That's where the emotional part of the brain comes in. And now the body is learning chemically, hormonally, what the brain have already, or what the mind have already understood. So we go from thinking to doing to being. And that's a process. That's a biological process of self transcendence. So that's the process of change. It's just education, the right education. And that's what we said earlier about oppression of consciousness on this planet. You know,
Hmm.
all our education need revamp. We need to revamp all our education, and along with it goes the economic model. I mean, why should we charge children thousands of pounds to educate, but then we find it easy to fund wars? Because if we educate our people, right, it means that we all rise, we use less energy to thrive as society. We use less energy. There's more energy in the system than expended. There's more energy in the body, in our ecology, right? Because we are all moving together. We are all, they say that the movement of quantum particles, it's defined, the the way it looks to us, that that is wave, but then when it hits the screen, we see particle. And then of course over time, I mean, when quantum tunneling happens, for example, quantum tunneling, we don't understand how it happens, but because they are finding many parts to get there, they are moving, they are so fast. They say that, the amount of speed it takes for information in different part of the brain to move across, the amount of time it takes information to flow across different part of the brain is so fast. It is so fast. So if and I'm saying that because if we are doing that, as if we're all educating our people, right, what that means is that we will be so efficient in terms of energy. We won't have sickness. We will have circadian matching. We wouldn't need to be drilling and mining and have warehouse full of computers, or warehouse full of both, vacuum cleaner and plastics and computers after computers and different wires of iPhone wires. Every year they create different wires. The computer on my back is Apple, is useless now. How many people have that in the world today? That computer behind me is,
Mm,
the former model is useless. I don't know what to do with it. The
mm.
guy in my local area, the computer geek, doesn't want it, right? Because he doesn't want it. This is because this, we have wired our society in a completely weird way,
Mm,
compared to how nature can do it more efficiently, right? Do we need to put cars? Do we need to make cars into economy? No, we don't need to make to have, you know different Toyota, Audi, what else, Mercedes Benz, BMW, all of them creating cars, all of them selling cars. It's not a status. Car is really part of the economy. That is just simple. It's so obvious. So we are on a reckless train, and we need to turn back. And turning back really begins to bring us back home, all of us home. It brings our nervous system home. You know, I tell people, you think you're healthy, right? You think you're healthy. Yeah, I really respect you doing your best, because we need you to keep doing that exercise. We need you to keep obeying the laws of nature, commanding yourself to obey. We need you because the war going on in Gaza is causing a butterfly effect in the field. So if you're praying at 5 o'clock in the morning, yeah, we need you to keep doing that, because that prayer might be answering somebody's prayer you have no idea about.
So do you think, Kola, we'll kind of end on this question.
Yeah.
Do you think we've, since our hunter-gatherer times, right? Let's use that as a starting point. Do you think we've progressed since those times in any way? I mean, is it a case of, I'm trying to like figure this out. Like, is it maybe a case of, we're going upwards and it's slow, but surely we make mistakes, we're still flawed. but it's still an upward direction overall. It goes up and down, but it's tilted up mostly. Or is it up and down going down? I mean, you could use evolution as an example, right? We didn't just evolve into humans one day just without making any mistakes. There was a lot of, death and mistakes and whatever, however you want to define a mistake. I guess in an evolutionary perspective, a mistake would be dying or not reproducing. So is this just a slow uphill climb, or is this the society and the technology and the wires, like you're saying, and the cars and the centralization of power and at the very top, right? Is Are we heading towards something dark, would you say?
Good question. It's a question that I've thought about a lot myself. Um, you know, on a theory side, like, we know that time is not linear. We know that. We know that healing is not linear either, you know. So I will give grace to this question, to this civilization. You know, I will give grace. I don't know how to answer that question. But I believe that I don't know.
Yeah, I know
I don't know.
yeah. It's
I
a
don't
tough,
know.
yeah, yeah. It's a tough question. Obviously, it's
I
not
don't
like a
know.
yes or no,
I
but
don't know. But I am very aware of that. There's so much suffering in the world right now, and it's unnecessary. It's really unnecessary. That's all I can say. So much suffering in the world right now. It's unnecessary. There is a documentary I saw a while ago about this cave that was found in Japan, if I'm right. And this cave lead them to a different ecosystem. They couldn't imagine it. They couldn't imagine the possibility of it. And inside this cave is a whole different world in Japan. It's not completely different to the one that we live here, but the organisms that they found in there, all the things they thought was lost, some insect, they found it there. So, and that's the grace of the planet. That's a moment of grace. That's the grace of the planet. And that is a moment of grace for this planet. And I'm also saying that there's so many suffering on this planet, and we can just eliminate them just like this with education. And with education and people who are in key places, professors, um, lecturers, ordinary people like myself, bankers, doctors, just saying, this is not working. There must be another way. And that's to do with like confronting, you know, we have to lose our head to find it. We can't be sure all the time. And this is what I don't like about a lot of some people. And their sense of sureness make me shudder. Like, oh, crypto is going to save the world. Right. Well done to you. Crypto is going to save the world. Why did crypto save the war in Gaza right now? Stupid asshole. Sorry. You know, and, you know, yeah, we all just have to go back to that fundamental principle. Like, like I said before, every child, Every child born on this planet is born into, incredible, imaginable richness. And a child should be able to take that to the bank, so to speak, and cash on that, and take it anywhere on this planet and freaking cash on that. No limit. Just because you are born on earth. And I'm not joking about this. Any child born out of wedlock, in wedlock, whatever, is born into imaginable wealth. And any child should take that to any bank and cash on that with no restriction, with only the intent to perpetuate the same graciousness that he or she has received by being born on earth. Brother, I'm not freaking joking about that. And that need to be downloaded in the consciousness of every person on this planet. What I just said need to be a reality, a consciousness, a second, a common knowledge on our planet, like 1+1. A
Mm.
common knowledge. Go and Google what common knowledge is. Every civilization have common knowledge. That should be a common knowledge. Every child born on earth is born into wealth. That should be on your birth certificate, not some freaking passport. Should be on it. That should be on it. That you are born into imaginable wealth of this planet, and you can take it to anywhere and catch on that, metaphorically, so to speak, with the intent to perpetuate the same graciousness, whatever genius that child carries, whatever kindness and compassion that child carries can be perpetuated. As a result of that possibility, the graciousness have been bestowed on the child. But child are born in imaginable pain and suffering. So what do you expect? What do you expect? Of course, war will be justified. This is serious on this plan, and I can comprehend why a professor can come to that conclusion. You don't need education to come to that conclusion, right? So, from that principle of thinking, that first principle, that is first principle thinking. From that, we can build a new world. How will our economy look like from that point of view of a child being born on planet Earth? What would we define as economy? What would economy look like from that point of view? Let's start with that. But we build scarcity, we build control, domination, border agency, currencies. Your pounds different from my naira. Your naira is different from my yen. Your yen is different from my ruby. My ruby is bigger than your dollar. Wars and a vicious cycle, very vicious, blood sacrifice. And this first principle thinking need to get into people's brain. A professor, a therapist should come to that conclusion and start asking that same question. First principle thinking. You break everything down to fundamental principles, to fundamental truth. Any child born on planet Earth is born into imaginable wealth and should be able to cash on that with the intention of perpetuating the same grace. That's just first principle thinking. I don't need to tell a professor. I don't need to communicate science to get that into somebody's head. Let's come back to first principle. That's a problem we have. Professors everywhere decide that on that question It will change their life. It will change what they're trying to do. What is education without that understanding? You are you educating somebody who is oppressed, bullied? That's no education. So it's a really big deal. It's a serious big deal. And I'm not going to shift from that. I'm not going to let anything in this world change that thinking. Change. You might call me naive, so be it. You might call me just a fairy, hairy fairy person which values in the world. No. So that's where we are. We need to
Mm.
come to that principle thinking. People talking about Gaza, Palestine. The people that are suffering are humans. People are shouting freedom for Palestine, blah blah blah. That is great, but we need to start pushing for fundamental principles because we've had enough of these wars on this planet. It's just and that story and that story. Oh, yesterday was Ukraine. Oh, Ukraine and Russia. Oh, let's give them money. Oh, no, we need money to build back Ukraine. Ukraine. Russia want to take Ukraine. Ukraine want to take Russia. Oh, it's NATO. F that. What is that? Oh, it's NATO. NATO want to kick Russia out or blah blah blah. Is there any part of nature where NATO was written? Is there any part in nature in the sky that says Russia or Ukraine or NATO or America? It's none. People that are native to the land should own the land, native to the land, own the land, educate people about your land, about your culture, the things you've learned from Earth that makes you native. Educate the world. Let's have a decentralized communities everywhere where there is a flow of information and energy, right? Let's have that. People that are native to the land should they don't like own the land, but they should tell us about the story of the land. They should tell us about the story they've learned by living off and in the land and what they've been able to learn from their own consciousness and the consciousness of the land and the river around them. So the Indian American who are native to the land can teach us about that land that we call America. Just a name, right? That's all right. Name. We need
Mm.
name. We need to name things, but they can tell us about the land and the stories that belong to the land and the thing and the arts and culture they've learned that makes them human. Because we're all just human. That makes them human. Any culture makes us more human. It doesn't make you an alien or better than anybody. It makes you more human. That's what cultures are. It shows us how human we are. So if there is this decentralized approach to communities and culture and arts everywhere, and then we realize, oh my God, all these communities have they have more in common than anything else. They have more in common because the trait that makes us human are the same. They might look different in arts, but they are the same. So if we can weave together with different kind of brain and bring together this collective information and energy like a bank and bring this information together and see how we can process this information to create greater reality on earth. Like, you know, some people have a better understanding of nature. What can we learn from a native indigenous person in the forest about nature? Maybe they can show us. And now we know so much about, and science have, the beauty about science is ability to piece together, to piece apart and put together nature, understanding of nature, which is what native people tend to understand. Now, science can synthesize this knowledge, right? And AI can regenerate this knowledge to create a better reality. So, science, technology, AI, native, indigenous knowledge, just wealth. It's just incredible wealth. So all of this story, oh, Israel owns the land, oh, their father said it should, Zionist. I am so sick and tired of this old way of thinking. A child born on Israel does not understand that. But in his brain, he understands he's born into a very regenerative, abundant universe. And the good news, like a question you asked me, is that we made lots of mistakes. We made loads of mistakes, but we've also learned a lot of things. That was your question earlier, right? We made loads of mistakes. We made enormous mistakes, but that's great. That is really great. We made loads of mistakes, loads of mess, but that is really, really great. And we've also learned some good stuff, but we've made a lot of shit problems, right? But that is great. Can we bring all of this together, right? And a lot of people that are shouting, Palestine, fight for Palestine. While that may seem like a good thing to do, we need to address the consciousness behind that. That is great, but this consciousness need refining a little bit more. Like I was talking the other day, I made a comment, and I love comments. I love reading comments. I made a comment about on somebody's post how the fact that well, you can say that, but then you will hold on to your nationalism because you are British, and so you can go anywhere in the world with your passport and not be bothered, and you can take your British pounds and be happy because your pound is more heavier than any currency on the planet. Well, you can, it's easy for you to say what you're saying. I can't remember, but it's easy for you to say what you're saying, you know, but if you are fighting for freedom in the world, if you are fighting for freedom in the world, then you need to address that. Because if you're not addressing that, then what you're really doing is privilege. What you're really talking about is privilege. What you really wanted is privilege, not human liberation. Right? Human liberation is different from different. And I made this comment, and somebody else came. That person is also British, and made this comment, and I was like, that is what I'm looking for. And this person make a comment, British person make a comment and say, yeah, we know, everybody should belong to a country, and everybody should belong to a country. That's what the person said. Everybody should belong to a country and have a country, right? And I said, that is the consciousness. That is the person is talking about privilege, not human liberation. And you see people take a stance, protest, but you have no idea the kind of consciousness they're coming from. until you challenge them, until you begin to put on their face first principle thinking. First principle thinking says that every human, every child born on this planet is born to a rich, abundant universe. Doesn't need any freaking passport to go anywhere on this planet. As long as that child have an intention of perpetuating the same grace that has been bestowed on him or her. Right? And that's where I'm beginning to notice. Because you think about this thing and then you test it. I was like, oh, people are kind of like selective in their thinking. Yeah, I'm going to fight the Palestine, but I want to still want to hold on to my British passport and my British privileges. No, everybody should be part of a country, and that means I can still hold on to my British colonial privileges. I have passport. I can go anywhere in the world. I have my British pounds. I can go to Spain and Costa Rica or Bali and enjoy my British pound like a king or a queen. But we are talking about human liberation. That is what is on the table right now. The greater the chaos, the more important this human liberation is. We're not fighting for Palestine. We're not fighting for Gaza. We're not fighting for Israel. As you know, these stories, these narratives they're too chaotic. They're insane. They're hold. There's too much. And there won't be any answer to any of them. Because humans, we can be incredibly stupid until we move back, we move all the way down to first principles. And that's what chaos demand. The greater the chaos, the further we have to go down to first principle thinking. Fundamental truth. Fundamental truth. The fundamental truth is not some freaking US Constitution. The fundamental truth is not some freaking any country's belief systems about themselves or the world. The fundamental truth is that every child born on this planet is born into imaginable wealth. And this story that we have maintained about countries is killing us. And they are using it, wherever it is, they're using it to fabricate more chaos. And the more chaos, the more they can control the people. Because the more fear there is in the world, the more it's easy to control people. The more easy it is to take from people. Something I wrote yesterday, but I've forgotten what I want to write yesterday. I've forgotten it. I remember. I want to write something around this topic yesterday. That the more fear that we have, the more fear there is in a society, the more the cost of living increases. And the people will accept it. They will accept it as normal because there's fear. And fear to do with shame. It has to do with trauma, shame, trauma, fear. And that's where we are right now. That's where we are. And all these stories, they won't go away. We have to challenge them and come back to first principles. We see COVID. That 2 years or 1 year of COVID, it's as if no freaking scientist could come out and give us a basic understanding. It was just mumbo jumbo. Oh, the vaccine works. Oh, tomorrow it doesn't work. Oh, you need 1, 2, 3 vaccine to work. Come on. The same thing is happening right now with the war. All this bullshit narrative. Gaza. The Zionist. These. The Jewish people. Blah blah. All the stories there as old as time. They have no fundamental. They have no fundamental basis in truth. Basic, and that is where we have to come, because or else nothing will change on this planet. Nothing will change, and it will keep humanity more oppressed. And it's funny, I told you about this experiment I did. I told you about this experiment that I did. I purposely put that comment there, and I was watching what the who's going to challenge that comment. And luckily, somebody challenged it, and that's what I was expecting, because you have no idea the premise that people live their life until they demonstrate it. You have no freaking idea the premise that a person based their life on. But you'll be shocked when you literally hear the premise that some people live their life. You will be literally shocked. And I have been privileged to listen to so many because I come out with fundamental principles all the time, and you'll be shocked the premise that people believe, people base their life on. You'll be literally shocked. So don't be surprised when you hear things like Holocaust and how people participated in the oppression of their own fellow humans. Because the principle that people base their life on only need a certain level of oppression to come out and say, "Ha ha, I've been waiting for it. Hitler want to oppress these people. I have been waiting to oppress them." Bang, I joined. And this thing, I may look like an ordinary person talking like this, but until every one of us begin to challenge your fundamental principles, and like I said, you'll be shocked the premise that people based their life on. You'll be literally flabbergasted. And I'm telling you the truth. I have been thrown up my chair when I hear some people's premise, the principle they live their life. When they talk to their kids, I was shocked. When they actually say it to me, I was shocked. I was literally shocked. So the only way you will know is two way. You confront them with fundamental principles, or you make room for their premise to be acted out, which is oppression. You'll be shocked how many people love oppression, Sam. You'll be so shocked how many people you call your friend love oppression. You'll be shocked. I leave it that way. It's good to talk to you.
Yeah. Wow. I see what I just want to like, yeah, I see what you're saying. Um, I mean, you're not saying that, you don't care about humanitarian causes or people dying, but that in fact is at the center of what you care about. You don't care about the science and this separation and nationalism and you're from this country, I'm from this country and all this stuff. You're trying to say that, and tell me if I'm wrong, that it's all just about humanity and abundance. That
Totally.
we get sold this lie that I have to have this land and you have to have this land, or I have this amount of money, you have this amount of money. It's this illusion of scarcity that we tell ourselves. But we are born into a world of abundance. We can create wealth, right? We can create this abundance of health and love,
Yeah.
whatever it is. But it's this like it's this collective brainwash that's happening where that we teach that child who's born into abundance that no, you're actually lacking, that you should actually have a scarcity mindset. And with that message, they learn how to take from others and compete and all these different things. And you get that. Is that what you're trying to say? You're trying to say that you're not trying to say that what's happening in Gaza doesn't matter. Of course, we want peace, right?
Yeah.
And however which way
We don't
the
want
listener right
peace.
now,
We
yeah,
want human liberation.
yeah. You're saying at its very core, it's like it's a human issue. It's not
It's
like beyond
exactly.
it's beyond just countries and labels because this issue has happened in so many other areas of the world and so many different periods of history.
Yeah.
There's a deeper lesson behind all of this. Although I would say people that are listening to this, it's a sensitive time, and I would understand how someone would be enraged if if someone came up to them and told them that,
Tell them to
oh,
leave comments. Tell
yeah,
them
yeah,
at the beginning that they can leave a
leave it in the
comment.
comments for
That
sure.
a lot of things that we hear will be
Um,
challenging to them, but please keep an open mind and leave a comment because the guy I'm talking to is very open-minded and is just sharing this. You can say that at the beginning of the podcast that they should just keep an open mind and
yeah,
leave comments.
yeah,
And what I'm saying is like, you know, all of these stories that we have been sold, all this social construct and social fiction we have been sold hasn't gotten us anywhere. We are in 2023. When was World War One? 1943 or 1940? When was the World War Two? 10 years later, or I mean 30, 10 years later, right?
yeah.
1940, 1943, 1945. You know, but then when was 9/11, for example? When was war in Iraq? When was Gaddafi killed? When was it hasn't gotten us any freaking way. And the common denominator in all of this is ordinary humans,
Mm.
babies, mothers raped, fathers they chopped their hand off in Rwanda. You know, it's ordinary people, it's humans, not government, not politicians, not some elite rich people, not even the American people themselves. It's government, it's industrial military complex, it's all these government institutions, right? But the common denominator is humans that are suffering. It's ordinary people that are suffering. But people are so living in Stockholm syndrome, with their abuser and oppressor holding on to all these titles. But we are in 2023, and this thing is not changing. And there is fundamental principles. I'm not the only thinkers in the world. Honestly, everything that I've thought about, when I Google it, I realize that somebody else has thought about it. It just freaking shocked me every time. When I think about anything, when I Google it, I find somebody else has thought about it, actually written a book about it. Actually, it was a lecturer like 40, 30 years ago. Like who first came out with first principles? Who first came out
Mm.
with system thinking or information theory or quantum theory? This thing has been around for ages. And this thing have quantum information has nothing to do with your freaking nationalism. But these are the engineers, these are the quantum information, these are the engineers of possibilities, these are the engineer of regeneration, of abundance. And guess what's in the way? Nationalism is in the way, government is in the way, industrial military complex is in the way,
Yeah,
right? But then we've done all of this nationalism border agency for years. For years we've done it. It has gotten us nowhere. We're in 2023 and we need to, like I read in that book, in that thing I read to you about, who legalize violence. Violence is being committed on ordinary people.
mm.
But ordinary people are so in their Stockholm syndrome they can access a greater level of thinking, a greater level of consciousness. And as Albert Einstein says, we can't solve this problem on the same level of consciousness in which it was created in the first place.
Yeah.
And
I I
and
see.
that's where I'm at.
I think I see you. I'm understanding what you're trying to say. You're trying to say that, regardless of everything that's happening, that identification or incorrectly identifying with something or rigid identification, let's say, is the core of this issue. So
Rigidity.
when you say I'm this nationality, that itself is an issue or is a danger because
It's actually,
you're
yeah,
separating
it's
yourself from
actually
another person.
dehumanize.
Yeah.
That's the
You're
word. It's a technology for dehumanization.
you're attacking the very like separation of when a human being
E.
proudly separates
Exactly.
himself from
Exactly.
the external environment, from the world. You're
Exactly,
trying to
brother.
say we're all wave, and when a person rigidly identifies as a particle, that's the issue. So you're trying to say
Exactly.
that these are two particles again. In my personal belief, again, it doesn't matter what I think, but wherever you stand on the issue, you're still talking about someone identifying as a particle as opposed to a wave. But I would challenge that, Kola. I would say in my head, I would say yes, I agree that transcending the illusion of separateness is important, but you know, you're it's you can't like I don't think you can go to a child right now who's being bombed in Gaza and tell them, hey, you just have to transcend your identity and transcend. You know what I'm saying? It's like
Sam, I'm not
I don't
saying
know.
that.
No, no,
I'm
yeah,
not saying that. What I'm saying is, I'm not saying to go to a child in Gaza to do that. What I'm
yeah,
saying is that we as collective, when our thinking begins, when a professor in university, all the professors in university, all the people in the health sector begins to begin to say this is not working. There has to be another way. I cannot keep on giving paracetamol, keep on doing this medical thing that does not ever heals anyone,
mm,
right? I cannot be part of the system that actually doesn't solve anybody's problem, right? I cannot be part of this thing anymore.
mm,
There must be another way. When we are putting the information out there, how do you control people? Through information. They use radios in local communities to brainwash people. That's
mm,
what we are doing right now, right? To begin to
mm,
challenge, and I really have this attitude of just putting pure fundamental principle thinking out there, because terror is out there carelessly. Terror is out there, Sam.
mm,
Terror is on the table day and night. So we need to put this fundamental principle out there day and night. Just this weekend, about 1 million people protested in London,
yeah. I
right?
saw that.
Why that is great. Like I said to you, that experiment, if you challenge some of these people, is still the level of thinking need
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
adjusting.
yeah.
Kind of adjust, and I love that word adjusting, because it's a very spiritual tool that consciousness does or not. It adjusts our thinking so that we can show up in a better way, right? So what we are doing is providing education to adjust people's thinking, because if imagine those 1 billion people
Mm,
declaring the truth, the fundamental truth that I've spoken on this podcast today. They challenged it. Just 1 million people begin to chant these fundamental principles. It won't take long. It will not take very long, because the child in Gaza is depending on us. I'm living in my flat right now. I can go to the market, but they can't.
mm.
They can't. I'm sorry that they have to go through that, but I can be responsible for a greater reality, a greater possibility in the civilization in this time. So that what happened to that child never happened again to any child. I'm not saying I can do nothing right now about the child, but I am doing nothing. I am doing something by what I am putting out there, even though people think I'm crazy. But every time I Google some of the things I'm talking about, I found that somebody, a professor, I've written a book, and that professor I've left university. I've completely left university because I realized that it can't be part of this thing anymore. It can't be part of this organized criminal that is the government and its institution. Because until we start using our senses, I said somebody, you don't need science. We don't have to wait for science. Use your senses. Forget about everything I've been taught. Use your senses. You are human. Why can't I go if I want to pack my load and say I want to go to Africa and leave? Why can't I do that easily as long as I have the intention of perpetuating the same goodness and grace have been given to me? Why can't I do that? Why do I have to squeeze through crazy system to get anything freaking done? But the government can just go to the aeroplane. They are there. You see, we need to. Oh God. Oh God. Oh my God. We, we need to do this. This is
Hmm.
part of what Plato was talking about, the Plato allegory of the cave was trying to address.
Hmm.
We're so conditioned to this social reality, this fictional reality, like a smoker is conditioned to smoking when he's under stress. We don't think there is any other way. And that is Stockholm syndrome with
Hmm.
the cigarette as an abuser. And we need to start, you know, the thing about suffering is that it rearranges your brain in a way that any other thing in life, any other experience can rearrange your thinking. A child going through that Gaza stuff right now, if he's lucky to have a good support after this war, to have a good therapeutic support, that will rearrange this child's thinking to fundamental principles like any other experience will. And it's going to happen because that's the nature of consciousness in human being. When a human being go to suffering and they have support and they transform that transform that suffering through support, they come out to revolutionalize things. I'm telling you, and it is coming. It is coming. It is coming. That's all I can say. I don't know. I have a certainty, but I have a certainty because I have this breath in my lungs.
All right. Wow. Yeah, this is the longest podcast I've ever done so far, man. Yeah, that's been a pleasure.
Thank
Um,
you.
yeah, let's have you on again. Where can people find you if they want to search for you on the internet?
I need people to find me on Instagram. I need people to find me on Instagram, to find me on Twitter, and to follow me on Twitter, to follow me on Instagram. As much as I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, I'm also a humanist. I really push this first principle really, really well.
Yeah.
Because once you've been through certain events in your life, you realize that nothing matters anymore on this planet. Nothing matters apart from this human connection. And there's a quote. Oh, just disappeared. There's a quote that's by this guy, John Nisbet. I'm planning to Google him today. I don't know, maybe I Googled in the past, I forgot it, but I had to Google it to find out who this guy is. And he said the greatest breakthrough of the 21st century won't occur because of technology. They will occur because of an expanding concept of what it means to be human. John Nisbet. And that's my principles of life.
Beautiful. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Sam. I really enjoy my time with you. Thank you.